What I'm saying is that, again, I have to say the same statement. Just because someone says they're Babalawo doesn't mean that they're Babalawo, number one. So a lot of people throw that term around because you can go to Nigeria with $1,500 sometimes or $2,000, get an Ifa initiation, come back to America and tell everybody you're a Babalawo. But that's not, it takes a very long time to truly be a Babalawo. For the most, you're a student of Ifa. So I just kind of want to pre-qualify my answer with that. I don't want maybe that one incident to represent Ifa as a whole, because it may not, whatever that person was taught may not really represent Ifa as a whole. Number two, I also want to say this: use whatever you can use to do whatever you need to do. It doesn't have to be Ifa. I am not a religious person, and I'm not in a religion. Okay, I have no loyalty to Nigeria or any other tradition. I could care less. I have loyalty to my life's purpose and my life mission. I have loyalty to my own soul, and that's it. No system in no way is complete in itself. It's just like martial art. You may get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 3 guys stand. You can't fight 3 people on the ground. You know, you may get into Wing Chun, but that's all close quarters. And what am I going to do for long range? So, you know, you have different things. In terms of developing your energy, or what we call, again, developing your ashe, there's 1,000,001 things that we do. And that's why the initiations are staged. When you first come in, or if you're given the right hand of Orumila, you're built up to a certain place. You're taught certain songs. You're taught certain things to eat. You're taught the science of herbs at certain times. You know, okay, this time of the day, the herbs interact with each other like this. But when the sun is at this time, it interacts like this. And this builds your ashe. Put this in your mouth and chant this. So there's deep breathing. There's all kind of different things in the Orisha tradition, the dancing, the singing, the drumming. All of these things open up these chakras, and they cultivate that kundalini energy. Again, that's why we say Eshu is the Onibode, the gatekeeper. He's the where you start everything at. Now Eshu lives within the root chakra. So that's where that kundalini is coiled up at. So once you start, when you begin and you come into tradition, you do a lot of work with that shu. You're constantly chanting Eshu Dide, Eshu Dide, Eshu Dide, and you might be told to chant Eshu Dide 5,000 times while weaving a basket. Okay, now, right, and that Dide means arise. Dide means to stand up. Okay, right. So you're telling the snake rise up,
which is the same meaning within the ancient Kemetic traditions of shu, which means to rise up.
Well, how long? Let me ask you a question. How long would that take to? Well, let me say this. Well, I basically want to know how long would that take with your process to open up the 7 chakras, the 7 major chakras? Because it sounds like it would probably take more than 21 days.
It depends on who the person is, but I think the first thing, you can't put a time on something like that. You can't say, okay, and people will say that I can open up your chakras in 3 hours. You know, you feel a lot of different things, but to employ it and learn how to do it at will and instantaneous is 2 totally different things. Again, like I was saying, brother, there's 1,000,001 ways to get back to heaven. And I'm gonna actually, and I understand what both are saying. I'm gonna answer again. It depends on the person, and we're talking about employing something on a consistent and persistent basis, or experiencing something based on your instructor bringing you.
And then, can you say anything about Ogundemeji?
Sure, but let me address your first part of your question.
Okay.
First off, with receiving your hand of Orumila, what it does is it brings you into tradition as someone who says, okay, I believe there's something to this. It may be true, or it may be something that I venerate in a sense. That whole story of being initiated and then godparents disappearing, unfortunately, is very common. Okay, people initiate you, they get your money, and then you can't find them. Number one, even though I'm initiated, I actually don't really stress initiation. I'm not big on initiation at all, because we have the wrong idea about it often, and it's sold to us like we're buying a car. Like, once you get initiated, this is going to be right. You're going to get hit by a car if you don't get initiated, and all that type of foolishness. The truth is, any system that you have to initiate in and to really like learn it, don't mess with it. and that's Yoruba or anything else. The truth is, if we came up in Nigeria in certain environments, most of the stuff we would know already before any type of initiation.
Mm-hmm.
So your initiation is supposed to initiate your learning path here in the diaspora. But there's one thing you said first. You said my godmother. Now, that's Catholic. We don't deal with godmothers. That's something that, and I know everybody says my godmother, my godfather, or my padrino, or my madrino. That's not really traditional. That's a diasporic thing that happened because of the Ma'afa, and families were dispersed and broken up. So now they created this concept called the Ile, which is a house, and you had a godmother and a godfather and godbrothers and godsisters. That has nothing to do with Ifa or Orisha. You don't have that in Nigeria. Okay, so what would have normally have happened is that you would have went into a shrine or a temple, and you would have went there for services and for different ceremonies and things, and that's how you would have learned. Okay, you wouldn't have needed a godmother, godfather. Now, you always had someone who would you and guide you and teach you and show you certain things. That was normal. But this whole other thing, this is some diaspora stuff, and I urge anyone listening to stay away from it. I also urge anyone to stay away from anyone who's pushing to initiate you without teaching you anything first.
Right.
Okay, because there's really no point in doing it unless you just want an experience. If you just want to see what it feels like and see if you might fall out in the spirit or the Orisha may come, you could do that. You need to stress more education. We're different than the Nigerians old. Okay, so there's a certain interaction that we have with these energies that they didn't have until they got initiated. Okay, you have little children who have dreams about mermaids, and they have dreams about men walking around with their heads on fire. That's Shango. You see, so what's happening is because we're evolving, and all this collective work that our ancestors have been putting in for millions of years that we've been here, we're now to the point where we don't need to kill all these animals and do all these different things in order to have a conversation with a thought form that's on the astral plane. We don't have to do all of that to do that at this point because of all of that ashe that's in our blood. When we were talking about that Egun, so we're coming out different now. Your focus needs to be learning before walking through somewhere blindfolded. Addressing the first part. Now, as far as the things that you're experiencing, now, just like the brother who called earlier who spoke about opening up the chakras, when you get initiated, that's what happens. They bring you through a process where they open up your chakras and they imbue you with a certain amount of ashe. So now you start having more prolific dreams. You start having past life regression takes place, things like that. So that's just a normal part of what's happening. And the truth is, if you would have committed yourself to 3 months of hardcore study, you would have had the same thing happening without the initiation. Okay? And that's coming from somebody who is initiated and initiates people when they really want to be initiated. But as all my students know, my first thing I'll say is, I don't want to initiate you. Let's study.
Right.
That's more honorable, and that's really more in alignment with tradition. Our ancestors didn't study all this stuff for us to have to do exactly what they had to do. That doesn't even make logical sense.
It leaves no room for adaptations either.
It leaves no room for adaptation, exactly. So, we're in this place now where we're growing and evolving different. And like you said, I'm getting into the candle magic. Like I told the brother who called earlier, I'm not going to say my system is better than your system, and your system is better than mine. I don't really care about all of that. If you are doing something that open up your chakras, wonderful. That's great. There are many different roads to heaven. Okay, so now if you determine candles and crystals are working for me, then you rock your candles and crystals. You do your thing to the tilt until you get tired of it, and then you make sure you go do something else and don't turn into a candle and crystal lady. When it's time to go now play with fire and play with tree bark and hug trees, you go do that and you kick the candles and crystals to the side. So that would be my word on that.
So sometimes things do be missing. It's okay. I heard you say you may not need to do animal sacrifice. That's okay sometimes, but I still do animal sacrifice, and I don't even eat meat on a regular basis. But it's okay for me to feed my feces. It's okay for me to feed certain spirits. It's okay for me to feed my ancestors.
It certainly is okay. There's nothing wrong whatsoever with animal sacrifice at all. And I advocate it, okay? And I also advocate eating the meat of the animal that you give to your Inkisis or your Lotis or your Abusom or your Orisha or your Egun. So, it's not really an issue of that, but it's an issue of being sensitive to where we are today and what's needed and what may not be needed. And that's really the key here. I'm not saying that we need to strip things, but it's definitely time. Sometimes we have to re-examine. Well, why was this done in the past? Was it even done like this in the past? And why is it? Why am I giving a chicken or why am I giving a duck? What's the difference? Or why are you telling me to give a turtle? What's the difference in a turtle or a duck? Or why do I have to give a goat now? It's important that when we start getting into things like sacrifice, or we get even to these initiations or rituals. Now, of course, we know with initiation, we're not allowed to know so much before we go into it because it is a secret thing. But especially when we're doing these tutus, these adamus, these ebos, it's important for us to understand, especially those of us who are initiated, those of us who are awos and babalaos, why are we pulling from certain things? Why are we using a chicken? Why are we using a rooster? What does a rooster represent? What does a chicken represent? Okay, that rooster is that cockiness. Half the time you're being told to sacrifice a rooster, you're really being told to sacrifice your ego. When we go, just as arrogant as we are and egotistical, and we kill the rooster, throw it in the garbage, and we still egomaniacs. And then we wondering why next week we did a reading and the elbow came up again. We got to do another rooster. It's time for us to start examining, what these Orisha energies are, what the Inkisis are, what's the relationship between the Inkisi and the Orisha. What is the relationship between what I'm told to sacrifice? When you're sacrificing something, to sacrifice just means to make it sacred. Okay, so all you're doing is taking something from the mundane world, which we're at, third dimension, and you're sending it to the fifth dimension. Because things that you need to happen, they need a vehicle of travel. It goes back to that vampire thing that we were talking about earlier. Blood is a vehicle of travel. Okay, you have these thought forms and you have these spirits, and in order for them to manifest themselves or to manifest their works into the third dimension, they need some type of vehicle to travel on. Okay, this is what even the science of melanin or Draconis, known as the night traveler. Okay, we're talking about traveling. So we give the blood so that they have a vehicle to travel here. They can materialize. But the truth is, there's also Ashe and what we call, as your Oriki, or that's your praise chant, okay, or your affirmation. For instance, the sister also said she Ogun de Meneji came up for her, which is Ogun. A wonderful chant that you could do for Ogun is Ban Ran Gandan. Okay, and I'll say it slow for those who have that Odu. Ban Ran Gandan. And if you go to certain temples, you'll hear them chanting that over and over and over. And what that actually is the sound that iron makes when you hit it with a hammer. Ban Ran Gandan. You see, iron. You see? So now when we do that chant, we can do the chant, or we can ask, why the heck are we doing this chant? What does it actually mean? And that's what Ifa represents, going beneath the surface. When we go beneath the surface a little bit, we realize, this is emulating and reproducing the sound that iron makes in the cosmos. So I am becoming iron. I am becoming Ogun when I say this chant. You see? So no blood involved. And I'm not saying that we don't need blood for something, but it's important to understand for many people, I'm not saying for all people, but for many people, the blood is a crutch. If you have built up your chi, your prana, your ashe to a certain level, then you do not need these things. You need to get the chicken, you need to get the goat, because you need the energy of these things to feed whatever it is you're feeding. But if you can generate that energy, like I'll go back to Brother Alim again. Go ahead, bro.
Let me ask you this, Brother Yuya. Is that because they will begin to start feeding on your life force energy?
Not necessarily when you're dealing with
if you do not have something in which that they can utilize, as far as, like you were saying, the life travels, and which that help with the manifestation.
They will feed on your energies if you send them to do something. You know, if you send me to the store but don't give me enough money, I'm going in your pocket. You see, because you sent me. Now, if you don't send me, I'm not going to feed on you because I'm indifferent. I already got, Ogun doesn't need my little punk chicken at the end of the day. There's enough killing and car accidents going on. Ogun's straight. You see? So, but if I send Ogun to do something and I don't pay Ogun the money, you say, look, man, you called me down here, you woke me up, I'm here, I'm taking something. So now I'm sleepy for 3 days, or I'm hungry, I'm eating all this food, or I'm horny. You know, now I'm having weird thoughts like, oh, I want to have sex in the shrine. And I don't know where it's coming from because I didn't give that energy that was necessary. So the reality is what you really want to work towards is not necessarily saving up your money for animals. You want to really work towards building up your chi. It's to the point that you're now generating so much ashe that your bara, your word power, is all that's needed. You don't even have to do an elaborate ritual. You just say, Ogun, take care of that. And you have so much ashe in the bank account. He's like, all right, cool, because you already got so much ashe, I don't need anything from you because your word power is strong enough that that's all I needed from you.
Excellent, brother. Appreciate that. All right, let's go back to the phone. We got area code 267. Area code 267, you're on the line.
Peace.
Peace, goddess.
Hey.
I'm actually new to the show, and I'm new to all of this knowledge. My king introduced me, and I'm just trying to get some understanding. So what advice would you give to someone who has no knowledge of any of this stuff? Well, at least that I can recollect.
Brother Yuya?
In a very simplistic sense, start with whatever you have an interest in. Start right there. Let's say if you love, you know, whatever you, it could be music. If you love music, start with music. What you want to do is when you start coming into some information, you want to not necessarily look for new stuff to do. You want to look at what you're already doing and determine if maybe you're already doing something that's real deep and divine, but you didn't realize it, but it was something that was encoded into you. Okay, so if you're a singer or you like music or you like to dance or you like to have sex or whatever it is, you start looking at those things. You know, look at your name. Even if you have a Western name, look at that name. You want to start dissecting yourself where you're currently at before you start creating an artificial personality where you think it's supposed to be. Okay, so I would tell you that should always be your immediate start. Just freeze everything. Don't do anything new yet. You know, start looking at what you already have, what your interests already are, and let that be your entry point. If you know you like music, start grabbing some conscious music, things that will start giving you positive affirmations in certain different directions. If you like artwork, start drawing different art that just comes to you. It's different, you know, whatever. These would be spiritual things, and that will start pushing you towards where you are supposed to be. But you don't want to negate who you currently are right now. You don't want to do that.
Okay, perfect. I'm actually an artist, and my passion is to work with children, and I try to use my art to heal them and whatever they're going through. So
you already got your religion. You're good. Your religion is art. So you rock that until you outgrow that religion.
All right, thank you.
There are multiple ways to get to where we need to get to. And the Orisha, I have a site by the name of Orisha Religion, OrishaReligion.com. You can go to information, readings, classes, things like that. But I will say that the Orisha are formula. It's just that OrishaFormula.com didn't have the same ring as with Orisha Religion, so I went with that. You know, what we're talking about here is working the different formulas of the cosmos, okay? And there's a Kemetic proverb that says that when Heru was a child, that the Neteru looked after Heru. And when Heru became a man, he commanded the Neteru. What that's speaking about is you have to mature and raise yourself up to that soul level, to being who you are, that self-defining, self-aware level. And then these same entities that you maybe yesterday had to burn a candle to, they now are bowing at your feet saying, okay, what do you need me to do? Okay, so that's the level you want to get to. You know, out of everything that I said, whether you're working with your Egun, or whether you're working with your Odu, or whether you're working with the Orisha, You gotta be clear that you're the one walking the planet. You're the one going through the struggle. You're the pilot of the ship calling the shots.